Call to order the Berlin Planning Commission meeting for May 13th, 2026. Can I get a motion to adopt this evening's agenda?
So moved. Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Can I get approval of the minutes for Wednesday, April 8th, 2026? Does anyone have any changes or comments?
No, I did that they be approved.
Second.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes from Wednesday, April 29th, 2026. Does anyone have any changes or comments?
I have to abstain on the company.
Yeah, does anyone want to make a motion to approve? Second, all in favor? Agenda item number 4, case number PC-5-13-26-08, 10,009 Old Ocean City Boulevard, Heron Park Development Preliminary Site Plan Review. You guys come up, introduce yourselves, start walking us through everything.
Let's see. So we go, grab right here. Come on. I think they're Christian. Good evening, folks. We're here under a little bit different circumstances this evening. We're legal, we're not road. And I want to thank you for having us and working with the county and resolving the issue of the flats. So now we have all the plats agreed upon, and we're now scheduled on this agenda tonight. Just for reference purposes, and Emily may disagree with this, our parcel 57, which was the recorded document, went from 9.719 per their engineers drawing to 8.640 acres. So we are on you're going to have to understand that the mayor and city council, even though they have approved it, they haven't formally approved it. So the plat, the drawings, everything we based on the April 8th hearing and tonight are contingent on the mayor and council approving finally, if I'm saying that correctly, the plat that we've all agreed upon. So they have to have the new action. But this is the same drawing that we brought into April the 8th. We're pleased to say that we have complied with the EA Associates, the town's engineer for the conceptual stormwater management plan. We have complied and addressed the PDF comments, and we have also complied with all the design guidelines that the town of Berlin has reported, has an ordinance with us. We have not completed site utility plans because we still have a lot of work to do with the county soil conservation, state highway administration, and the Department of Public Works for the town of Berlin. So with that said, I'm going to ask Brock to review the site plan. It will be the same presentation we made before. Brock, you want to go ahead and walk through the site plan?
I see some full-size copies here of the plan. You can do it. Yeah. Okay, Brock Clark from Department of Safety. Once again, I appreciate you for having us here so we can show you what we're planning for this project. As we all know, this is the former Tyson chicken processing plant. So, a pretty dilapidated building. It's a site that's pretty much a train wreck now with rubble and this decomposing building into the site. Our proposal is to come in and remove all of the site appurtenances, leave the building where it is, but take down portions of the building, leaving some behind, putting parking in between. So at the end of the day, It will be a completely new site, although we are using some of the existing structures from the buildings themselves. The front building we're earmarking as a retail, more of a livelier commercial style use, possibly a restaurant, possibly some offices, something that can take advantage of the exposure that we get from 346. The second building back, building 2, is a 21,000 square foot building that is a professional medical office. And the third building in the back, we're labeling that one as just a simple commercial or office building. Right now, that one, as we're seeking your approval, is a purely speculative commercial building. We'd rather not get into specified uses because there's some discussion as far as the restrictions on the property. But as it sits now, we are proposing a building that is in compliance with the zoning code as well as those restrictions. And then at the rear is a garden center, which is a simple small building up front, which will serve as the retail point of sale, and a metal pole building at the back that will house some of the indoor elements. And then the yard itself will be made of either a mixture of asphalt, stone. Our plan now is to recycle the concrete that we have on site and use those millings as the base for that garden center. Also, on the plans, there is the circle in the middle of the site. That is the existing water tower that we're going to embellish and paint. I think some of the preliminary plans was make it like a watering can or something that's kind of a feature that looks good for the site. As far as your zoning code goes, your zoning code requires a pretty comprehensive design of the site prior to getting into preliminary. And I can tell you the site has been fully designed. Front to back, grading, stormwater, sediment control. Obviously, we haven't proceeded into the formal preparation of construction drawings because we typically get through preliminary plan first, then we'll go to the open today. That is evident in the fact that your stormwater engineers have reviewed our concept stormwater management plans. This site is a classic example of a redevelopment project, which has a requirement to reduce the existing impervious of the site or treat the equivalent of a 50% reduction. We are doing that with a mixture of a lot of impervious removal, but we couldn't get to the site's impervious removed. So we are proposing a few bioretentions and a bioswale on site to provide some structural treatment of that storm. We are treating more than the code requires, hence EA has looked at our preliminary calculations and has approved those calculations. Utilities, there was some issue, or not issue, but some question on my survey crews with everything kind of out there. Some of it's was dead, some of it was live. The existing buildings were served with utilities, so we're going to keep serving with the utilities. Your Public Works Department was kind enough to give us some of the original Tyson plant drawings. That's really kind of pieced the puzzle together for us. So we've got a good handle on what's going on with utilities. That in coordination with what DBF is planning for the road, the utilities is really not going to be sure. Plenty of capacity, plenty of depth, certainly. In some of our meetings, we had some feedback from you guys, and I think some of the comments was the view shed coming, I believe it's north on 346. We've got that frontage embellished with some pretty good landscaping. We have revisited the parking along the former railroad track or the rails and trails. We've rotated some of those parking to provide some green area between that area and our site, to provide some significant landscaping along that frontage. We've also revisited the buildings and we've provided also community space so the patrons of each of the buildings has a place to congregate for, to kind of rest and relax outside the building. We also more clearly show a dumpster for each building where they're going to be and any shared elements between the buildings. The plat that was recently provided by DEF presents no issues to this plan whatsoever, what we were thinking. In fact, in this original design, we stayed really far away from that back property line that was in question, so we still are several hundred feet away from that property line. So, all the comments that we've gotten from DBF, from EA, from the town, we really don't see any problem or any issues with complying with those comments in full moving forward to a final. Should you be willing to give us a preliminary solution?
when you guys start construction, you're gonna go through all three buildings at the same time.
Building, the front building and the second building, those would be all high priorities. We still, I hope people believe me when I say this, we have a high intense need or schedule on building number 2 to get occupancy on that. That's why I've been a little bit, forthcoming, if you will, on trying to get these projects to the planning commission and to the town and get the property lines adjusted. Because we have a tenant there that needs keys in the door in 2027. I had originally promised the first and second quarter of 2027. I think I'm going to slip to the third, maybe fourth quarter of 27. But that being said, those two buildings will be our priority. Of course, since building number 2 has a drive-through pharmacy, the topography of the third building will have to be modified and constructed to accommodate that drive aisle. So probably we'll have to get the topographical information, plus or minus 2 tenths of a foot, and stabilize it with grass or something like that. We may begin with the garden center, which is the fourth building on the back. We have a lot of emotional excitement about that, and we're hoping that we can make that a real project. But in order for us to comply with the traffic study, we had to identify all the buildings that and uses that we could potentially use in this property. So that's why you see all 4 buildings, actually it's 5 of the existing buildings, all 5 buildings on that, because that information was completed with a traffic study and has been reviewed with State Highway Administration. We had to present everything, including the skate park and the public works building. The proposed public works.
Well, and one of the big issues, just at ESB2, and the sequence of construction, is making it with when we indicate many projects may be phase 1 continuous project, and indicate that the project is included in one phase. Is that, I mean, we're gonna see a multi-year phase, or we're gonna see?
That was, Carl Palmer was alluding to, in that most of the site grading will be done in one phase. The actual vertical construction of the building is a separate animal. These are our sediment control notes, which is the soil
That
disturbance.
only applies to some.
Yes, so once the pad is built, we stabilize it with grass, we comply with it. So, but if this changes moving forward and we decide to delay one D7, the sequence will be changed to illustrate this.
So the building might be completed, maybe, that might take time to do that.
Well, we have an accelerator flat on the floor for these 2 buildings. This one shell and interior, and this one shell. This one that I'm pointing to right here, again, because of the topographical requirements here, we're going to need to stabilize. Go ahead and do it one site operation. The site work will be complete, but we'll stabilize it with grass, basically. Unless for some reason we have a reason that 12,000 square foot.
I mean, another way to think about it, I mean, you don't anticipate any like volume construction. It may just be different in sequencing where which gets prioritized first, right?
All I can do is tell you that the reason I've been a little bit obnoxious the last few months is because I have a tenant, a repeat client, that needs to get in building 2. I have a sense of urgency there. I hope I have not offended too many people, so I'm trying to represent my client. So you will see us full speed on building 1 shell and building 2 shell and then
But I'm going to have to answer this question.
okay.
The question is, are we going to see this in the grass for years before you even get to it?
I can't answer that. It might be grass for years. I can't answer that. But the reason why we're doing this is because we have to do comprehensively the stormwater
No,
management.
I understand that. We're asking about sequence of building.
Okay, for buildings like your three, it might be years.
It might be years.
It might be years. And I would be concerned about if, the town going, especially one.
And on the construction drawings, when they're prepared, the actual sequence construction on the ESD as well as the utility and asphalt construction, if that is a reality, they will be phased. So we'll have phase lines on the plan which will indicate that parking is provided for all the buildings are being built, and we're stabilizing how we'll be leaving those grass areas. And so it won't be, it'll be a planned haul if it is going to be planned. So it'll be done intelligently. not as a stockpile.
But all the, if you know the site, there's a lot of poured in place concrete structures on it. Those will all be gone. Meaning there's a lot of industrial type structures in the back of that property they've gotta go.
And now that I think about it, that should be the town's desire.
Yeah.
At a minimum, that we leave it in grass instead of leaving it the way it is now.
Right, it's a mess back.
I mean, it's a death trap.
I just typically, we would be phase, it's like this would be phase one, phase two, and phase three. But the way this is submitted to us, it's all one phase. That's what I'm.
From a zoning perspective, we're seeking your preliminary approval of all of the buildings in the show. Once we get into the construction drawings, which is a separate facet altogether, that phasing may be demonstrated via phasing lines that proves that utility, grading, stormwater, parking, all of that works. When we get into final, if we have a definitive building that we're going to be proposing and an exact use, we'll be submitting that to your final. If we don't have that, then we really can't show you.
So each building is coming to us to find and do all
Yes,
landscaping.
absolutely.
This is based on the site.
Yes. Yes. The site may be phased, but I think is our intent. Correct me if I'm wrong. To seek zoning approval of final of all.
I think from our perspective, we were thinking that it would be nice to have the entire project presented to the town as to what our total intentions are for the property. And what we are saying that the third building in the back, I think the garden center and the two buildings back there are going to be ahead of building number 3. I guess my concern, Palmer, would be just that this building all of a sudden changes from what we're seeing here. We'll have to bring it back. I mean, we're not submitting elevations today. Okay. So I mean, that is I don't want to say pie in the sky, but we haven't submitted elevations. We've got to come back to you guys for that. And for the other building in the back. We have to come back to you.
It's one of those darned if you do. So if we show you that third building now and you approve it and we change it, we have to come back. But if we don't show you that third building, when we're ready to build it, we have to come back. I think from a site design perspective, from a developer perspective, it's better to get your opinions and your approval of the whole site in one shot.
You really are coming back. Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, sir.
I guess they're not gonna let me.
Well, yeah, the other thing, I was reading the letter from, the mayor, and this also this limited consent, in his last sentence, my consent to submission of the April preliminary site plan is not an ongoing consent. It is my express expectation that additional revised plans will be officially submitted to me as the town representative before submission to the PC for the future consideration.
I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he's also at that point in time on the date on that letter, to the extent I know, he didn't have a class from UDF. So I think when he uses the word plan, I think it might mean.
I mean, he wants to see the plan. Well, first of all, the idea is that like even as of today, he doesn't have the authority to consent to you planning the entire area because we have 405 and 410, those little slivers need to be added on the 26th of May. So he doesn't have authority to even consent to that.
Right, until the 26th of May, state town council meeting.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons. But the DBF, I do believe you're right. But the DBF wasn't. We hadn't received that when that letter was written.
So not to put words in Emily's mouth, but Dirk, what she's saying is when he's referring to the plans, he's referring to the plats because there's still property line adjustments.
Right.
And I think he means that, but we still have to come back to you.
I'm going to think ahead of myself this year.
Yeah.
I'm saying, Ryan,
Sure.
I just want to make sure that if we are to approve your site plan today, it has to be conditioned upon this approval from the mayor and the council, because he's telling us that this is unlimited. He's allowing us to get here, so you don't have to wait for that and then come back. He's not waiting for change. I understand.
You're just exactly right.
Okay.
Now we are bringing elevations in for the two buildings, the front buildings. Today, tonight, yes. Okay. We're bringing building elevations for those two buildings.
Not days.
Sorry?
It's not days, it's right?
Well, building number 1 and
It
building
seems
number
like
2. How about that?
Okay.
You're bringing that, but you're not testing.
Well, we are for building 1 and 2. Brock's presenting the site plan. Gary's going to present building 1 and building 2. The same drawings that Scott presented, back on April the 8th, and to a lesser extent, the same ones we brought in January. They're in your packet. They're in your packet. We don't have buildings 3 and 4 in your packet, because we're not after that.
So we are being advised that our code doesn't provide for preliminary plat.
We're not asking you for private. Okay.
Just for-
Or is that flat? We're talking about site plan. Site plan. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there isn't a process where it's multi-step for site plan review, which is why we're here for. It's just a site plan review.
Right.
And so, that's why, that's just the fact of the code, but it's being recommended that you basically treat it as preliminary because the mayor doesn't consent as the owner and can't until he gets a further approval from the council. And, there's the code is a little strange because it says this commission gives you recommendations to the planning director for certain elements, with the exception of architectural, which has to be approved by this commission.
Right.
And
And we
so,
have architectural in your packet.
yes,
But
Yeah.
I think,
So the question is on the elevation. Again, that's just a preliminary review. You have a lot of.
we're not here for final site plan. We're not here for final site plan.
Just wants to look at the bid and do a comment from where you.
Did they say you can't look at the building?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay.
That's what you want us to do.
We do. And honestly, yeah, I mean, you can actually comment on it, and
That's why I have the meeting tonight.
Sure. Kumbaya. We'll have a little campfire here, we'll get some marshmallows. Your system might go off, but who cares, But listen,
I think all of our expectations are the same, so good. Okay.
right. So I just lost my train of thought. We're going to be presenting architectural on buildings 1 and buildings 2. But, sitting on that side of the table, you can approve things subject to, on the condition of. So I think that's what we're here tonight.
I don't think you should be giving legal advice to them, but that's what you're asking. You're saying you would like them to.
Well, I think we all know that the plat has not been finalized, but both parties agree. But it can't be finalized
It's
until
an
it's
overstatement of what it's to by the town at this point.
It
But
what?
I think you're overstating what the town has agreed to. I'm just, from a legal perspective, you are here to give recommendations on the different elements, with the exception of the architectural, which can be approved. It has to be approved by this commission. But you're giving recommendations onto the elements of the site plan for the zoning certificate. So the question is whether or not you're recommending that the planning director issue a zoning certificate. And this is the first time it's been defined as what phase is seeking, which is fairly first and second buildings.
We've only presented phase 1,
Okay,
not phase, buildings 1 and 2. We've only presented that.
Sure. Yeah, I understand that now. I think it wasn't as clear in the packet, in the application. This is part of the confusion is that we didn't, it is a phase development, was always intended in my understanding of it. And so we weren't sure what the first phase was, but it's helpful to know the first and the second building.
Would you like Gary to present the architectural elevations?
The way I'm taking this, you're looking for overall site plan comments.
I think we're legally allowed to have comments tonight from this committee, as opposed to. Right.
And then the 2 buildings.
Yes, which we have presented the elevations.
You have these directed?
I just already been submitted.
What?
I just already been submitted. I can just pull it up on the screen at the time.
I believe it's the same ones that have been.
Yeah,
already.
they have some make.
I just pulled up on the screen, that's all.
In the smaller print size, it's like same package. I think I would like a smaller version.
Yeah. This one.
And then just to confirm, these are identical documents in the current package, just for us.
I'm assuming there's some technology issues with this packet, so I got that this morning. it appears to be consistent with, what's in your package. Because it's the same drawing you submitted.
So on the materials, fundamentally, the building is gonna be red brick, am I reading that right? Looking at it,
What was the question then?
fundamentally, the building is gonna be red brick.
We're looking for comments on this. I mean, I even bought what we did up in Easton as some other ideas. I know that the preference is brick. I like brick. Um, however, sometimes brick, as you can see on the elevations, could get too, monolithic. There's a lot of reveals in the brick that give you some texture. But, if you want to look at a building we did in Easton, same type of thing where we repurposed a 200,000 square foot building. Yeah, would you like to see that? Okay, all right, great. And keep one, everything's fast. No, and bought five. This is just ideas. This is chewing gum, if you will. This is a building we did in Easton for, University of Maryland Medical System, DaVita, and Tulsa County Health Department. And that presents a similar type of thing, and we're looking for your input on that. So as the buildings stand right now, the skin on the existing buildings will be removed or covered up. We're believing it's going to be removed. There's several different pictures in there. Talking about, this is what we're looking. So I mean, this is just an idea, that we did up in Houston.
Well, I like the brick, I like the design, there's some non-brick elements of it, like on this front page. Looks like it gives you a brick.
Well, right now we're designing this as brick. The elevations we have in your packet, are representative of what we're proposing, which is brick and brick. And all these brick elevations, here I'm stealing the thunder kind of, but all these brick elevations, there are a lot of reveals, in and out reveals, which bring a lot of interest to and shadow lines. So that'll be helpful. But this is what we're conceptually proposing. Today, of course, we can't go in there and do more demolition because the town still owns the building, but we would be doing some pull tests and things like that on the panels to see if we can, veneer or overlay the existing panels or they have to be removed. Andrew Welsh, I don't know if you guys know him, he's a structural engineer. He believes the panels need to be removed. So the whole exterior will be new skin, is what the way it's looking right now. But the result that you'll see from the road is,
You're excited. Look at this.
when you say recladding it,
If the panels out.
if the panels come off, it'll be all new structural steel walls and, new brick.
When you say brick, you mean red brick.
Well, the color, you know, typically in the design guidelines for Worcester County and now the town of Berlin ask us to submit elevations in color. So we have. So we picked the color. This, would you call this red?
Whether it's salmon brick, I
Uh-huh.
don't think you wanna see a glazed hard red brick, you wanna see something that's typical of the color.
Yeah. Yeah, a red brick.
There's a million different bricks.
Yeah.
Fundamentally.
Well, I'm only poking at you because you and I talked about red brick and my version
I
of
got
red
a
brick
yellow
was,
brick bridge,
Yeah.
and picked back to the red brick.
but I fixed that on the other floor. It's good. So anyway, we're proposing alt brick. At the current, there's some, as you can see, there's some awnings on it.
I think the awnings are great, they reflect downtown, so the awning piece of it is good.
And like I say, you have the more detailed in the packet of the actual, architectural elevation. So that's what we're proposing.
I think we said it before, I know I said it before, I like the building design. Right, it's done great, it's very practice. One thing that strikes me, like if you thought about it, if you look at the red brick patio up, and the rest of the restaurant, it makes it awful hot in summer.
Well, That's a good question. That's not a brick patio per se, it's a quote unquote community area. And, we at this time don't have any coverings for it, but it's not gonna be any different than any other paved area. It's not black, like blacktop, but yeah, I don't know that that'll be used like it's intended to be used, but I think it's a requirement in the design guidelines.
Well, I would agree with the rest, I think that was in line.
Well,
If they're good, you can have them both.
and am I say your name, might want to say Eric?
Yeah.
Okay. So I did bring you the drawings tonight. This is another, version of which we were reluctant to present back in, here you can, Vanna White here.
Yeah. This here is like this.
So, so anyway, this represents, there's a major flaw in this drawing. There's no fence on it, and if it's part of the restaurant, it will need to be enclosed with a fence due to, liquor law, liquor control law. So that's a pretty picture of what we hope it might be.
That's what that might look like that.
Yeah. We would like that, but we don't know if our tenants are gonna support it.
And how's that building broken down from any perspective?
Right now,
Is it like it's two big units?
yeah, we do not have a floor plan for that at this point because we're gonna concentrate on the shelf.
Right.
But it could be 1 unit, it could be 4 units. That's how we see it unfolding.
Is it goal, obviously, for the restaurant to be, have some part of that street facing facade, but that is a potential component if they're gonna be.
We would have to come back to you guys for that. If it changes it from what this is iWatch. What we presented here is what we want to build. So this is, these window sizes on this elevation, the window sizes would accommodate a roll-up garage door, the glass garage door. So we're hoping that that would allow the occupants to communicate out to a space like this. So it's kind of flexible, if you will. But we would, if we're doing something beyond this, I fully recognize that we're going to come back to you for the outdoor gas.
I mean, I like it conceptually. I know there's differences between the two. And our first off the record meeting about it, we were all thinking it was restaurant space,
Right.
and whether it was whether it could be restaurant space or not. And obviously, my comment about activating that street in a restaurant naturally does that, and that's leaving out from and stuff.
Well, I'll put it this way. I mean, building 3 could be, if we got too high of a demand for office space, but building 3 could be where our relief valve would be for office space. Our goal in building number 1 has been, since the RFP was submitted in 2021, has to make the front building a more lively, energetic, embracing building. And we're going to hold out for that.
So basically, you're finding out you're interested in buying this place.
Will it be for lease? But yes, I mean, and I'm repeating myself to the mayor and council, is that the very first question I get is when, and the second question I get is how much. And when we had 8 to 10 different restaurants on site, back when we thought we were proceeding under the original RFP, we had a lot of high interest from that. I don't know if you know, Sandy does the foodie tours in Berlin and Ocean City and Salisbury and whatever. She put all that together. So she had on speed dial every restaurant owner at her beck and call. And when she calls, they answer. So anyway, we had how many did you say, Sandy? 80.
Oh, 80 total, but
80.
oh, came on site, no. I thought you meant total that I had on speed dial.
Oh.
Like 86.
I thought you only told me 20.
But I think they came out,
Okay.
we have zero, like we have no commitments or anything.
You have a tenant, you're not really sure what you want to do there, at least that's the final project.
Yes. And that's going to be tenant driven, basically.
Are you gonna get a tenant before you start to build? What do you do with it?
No, as I've said before, the building that we're proposing tonight is this building. And we've made it modifiable to allow for lots of different uses, lots of different, I mean, when you see some of the projects we've done over the years, all I'm doing is predicting window and door spaces. Every project that we've done on speculation basis has been predicting window and door spaces, whether it's in either town on Seaford to Georgetown to Salisbury to here. We're guessing. So we're guessing a lot of this stuff, but it's going to be tenant driven. And that's going to be the fun part for getting the tenant's interest, is they're going to be able to modify it to their vision, if you will. So we really have a lot of moving parts on the front building. And if I can keep my tenant on the second building, that's going to make it a lot more comfortable financially. So with that said, I think there's also something that needs to be mentioned also. A part of our contract, the land disposition agreement, requires us to provide evidence of financing to proceed to settlement. So there's a chain of events that have to happen to that. If you go to call up Doug Church or Stephanie Krause or whoever you want to from a lender, the lenders are going to require approvals before I can go to the bank. I can get approval to buy the land, but my contract doesn't allow for that. So I have to provide evidence of financing to the town to be able to go to settlement. And I can't do the chicken and the egg situation because I can't do that until I have approvals, which is another reason why I've been a little bit aggressive in this process, because I need to get to a point where Worcester County Soil says yes, and State Highway Administration says yes, and I can take that to the bank and say, I have approvals, will you lend me $20 million? And that's not going to say because I have a pretty wife or something like that. They're going to say there needs to be financially solvent. But I knew that going in, so it was part of the agreement.
Well, the plan looks like it looked at in the past, and like that, so. Comments. After the downtown, the landscape, we talked about that before.
Right. Right.
Like when you had,
If you have any questions architecturally, I brought Gary here with me just to make sure there's any questions. You'll notice that Mark Cropper's not here tonight. He had a better offer tonight. So.
Yeah, he went out to sit here and charge you.
I know.
Say anything.
Well, at least he gets 4 words, one to be the 4 words. But anyway, we're here. And back in November, we were full of joy because we wanted to present this to the town. It got bogged down into the flats. We're back here, refreshed. We hope we have some more friendly, situations for the town and the town council, to approve this, site, the flats, which this is all based on, which we think we have. So I think what we're allowed to do tonight is say as we weren't allowed to do in January or April, that this is a preliminary site plan approval, a preliminary site plan comments. I'm not sure.
It's a little confusing because the code is not as clear as it can be. So, it is a preliminary, it's said it's preliminary. So preliminary arguably requires final, like additional approvals. And if there's any tendency or desire to approve anything or recommend anything, it needs to be clear what you're recommending. If you need to be clear, like specific stated, like you're approving building 1 and 2 only, and, I would recommend that you discuss what color brick, because the planning department has to implement it. So, there's been presented a more dark red, what red color, if you're approving the way it looks, I would recommend you be very specific about what you're approving or not approving, or if you want to come back.
I believe we've been trying to follow your all's site plan review procedure checklist. We believe we are at step 4. Step 4 says step 4 under step 2, which we provided a checklist, but it says revision and resubmission of preliminary site plan may be required. Approval of preliminary site plans by the planning commission and separate approval by the planning director is required to the submission of the detailed final site plan. So I believe if I'm reading this correctly and following the procedure, we need to have you're asking for a site plan approval and the approval of buildings 1 and 2 tonight. And that will allow us to go to the next step, which is the final formal site plan approval.
You saying preliminary approval to the building? Just like it's just for the thing?
The issue is the code doesn't have preliminary and final.
Yeah, it's
And
not
so,
what you-
and that's where it gets a lot confusing for the staff because it doesn't have a two-step process. So what we're really trying to recommend to you all is that you be clear about what you're asking or approving so that the staff knows what you've approved and not approved so there's no confusion. So, it's recommended that this be a preliminary approval and then it comes back, when it's more further refined. But the code doesn't give you latitude, so it's up to you what you want to do. But if you're doing any kind of approval, I would recommend being very clear about what you're approving.
So the question is, we've been trying to follow this, and we don't know if that is the same as the code. We think it must be.
It's a little different than the code.
It's different. That's what's confusing. But these are the instructions that I was asked to follow on the list on November 18th. So we've been following that religiously. That said, it says that it appears as if it's a two-step process where we have a preliminary. And I know how we've done it in Salisbury, Wacomico, and how we don't do preliminary in their city, we just do final. But it appears to be a two-step. I know that like we're going to the medical clinic in Crystal right now. It's a two-step process: preliminary site plan approval and final site plan approval.
Well, historically, that piece probably has been on there all week. No matter what the code says, I guess somebody didn't tell us that we didn't read it, but we always pretty much had preliminary site plan approval where a project like this came before us. We made recommendations. Everybody noted those. Staff knows those. And we expect those to show up on the final.
That's basically what we're recommending here is that you do a two-step process, but this is a preliminary because it's first of all, like for instance, the phasing is not clear in the plan that's been submitted. I mean, you could make it clearer if you really do something by very specific words.
Well, I mean, the phasing is implied by what we've discussed in terms of 2 buildings, and then he'll come back on the 3rd, so he agrees to go back on the 3rd but right now, I think he's trying to get his footprint figured out and stormwater and all the basics here, I think.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing, right?
So hypothetically, you could consider a motion to approve the site plan and conceptually approve the 2 architectural representations of buildings 1 and 2. I mean, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but that could be a simple.
I'm not necessarily disagreeing with Paul. I just think you need to be clear about what actions you're taking because what keeps happening is that you guys say, oh, this looks good, we approve it, and then the staff looks at it and says, what has been approved? We don't always know exactly what was approved because it's not clear. So if you're doing what Palmer's saying, I just recommend you be very clear in your words about what you're voting on and what you're approving.
Well, I think we always try to do that, but again,
on the site plan, we really have. I mean, we're ready to jump into Worcester County Soil Conservation and the State Highway Administration. So the site plan, as Brock said earlier, is fully developed. So this could be a site plan approval. We know we got to come back for final. So we're going to bring back the same exact plans that we presented here tonight for the site plan.
The way I'm hearing, we can only do a site plan approval if, and that's contingent on the council approving it.
Right.
The details of the agreement.
That's correct.
I think we're trying to prematurely here for that, but we could do it and say,
It's technically recommended. The code is talking about zoning certificates. Like it talks about you recommending, not approving the site plan. You recommend the site plan be given a zoning certificate. It's not approval in that context. I know I'm being very legal and wordy, but that's just the way the code's written right now. So you could say we recommend that the zoning, we don't have any objection to this zoning certificate being issued or something like that based on the site plan as it is today, subject to the other conditions, which is the owner of the property agreeing, which would be the town, and it being continuing to be the same site plan. if they change it, they have to come back. And that the first phase, the first buildings, those you do have to approve. You literally have to say we approve what it looks like architecturally.
I just have a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Can you direct us in regard to the zoning certificate versus what we're doing here? I didn't think we were doing anything on the zoning certificate. I
That's
thought we
just
were-
what they call it in the code. It's a misnomer because it's not a zoning certificate. It's a site plan approval. But the words in the code
Oh,
say
okay.
zoning certificate. There's a lot of problems with the code that, we really should be addressing, and it gets a lot of confusion because we're trying to move projects like commerce forward and we're working within this framework that doesn't make a lot of sense. If that makes sense.
Well, sometimes things can be taken too literally, and there's the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. Sometimes the letter of the law doesn't match the spirit of the law. And I think what Mr. Chandler Newt's saying tonight is that typically you do a preliminary site plan approval and then a final site plan approval. We're not asking for a final site plan approval, but I can say if the town council doesn't approve what appears to be approved, which was supposed to have been we were thinking and hoping it was going to be on May the 11th, which was the night before last town council, or the last. We were trying to keep open 2 town council meetings because of the budget and the tax proposals. We got asked to go to the 26th of May instead of the 11th of May.
Mhm. Yeah.
So we are, in my mind, I was overly optimistic and anxious. We were hoping for the 11th, but we didn't get the 11th. That way we could have come to you and said, we are now in agreement on this plat. But you're going to have to, for tonight's purposes, stay subject to the mayor and town council agreeing to the plat.
And whatever other things you all want to put in.
Right.
You can say, well, let me come back for final approval once it gets further refined. That would,
For a preliminary approval, we all make our suggestions, and we all agree on those suggestions, and not agree on them. But they've written down, so they know,
yeah.
there's no question.
So we come back.
And then if they come back with a final approval that doesn't have those in there,
Mhm.
or that violates any of the statutes report here that of the nuts and bolts they have to do, then they don't get final approval. I'm sure you'll get final approval, but tonight we can suggest a preliminary approval where they have to come back, put a rubber stamp on everything to go ahead with.
I don't disagree with you. The issue is you need to vote to say, like, as a body, that we're giving a preliminary approval and that final approval you need to come back for final approval, because what keeps happening on other projects, because the code is not clear, when you guys say we approve a site plan, when you say preliminary, some of the applicants are taking that approval and saying the code doesn't require us to come and get another approval, because you're not saying that this is subject to another approval.
That's okay. We'll clear up with the mayor.
I'm just trying to follow your all. That's all I'm trying to do. And
Yeah.
we're here for preliminary. We're not here for final.
Yes, I just want to make sure that the words when you vote are clear. You're doing preliminary approval with the expectation that final will be coming back. And if you approve the way it looks, you can do that, or you can say we want to have a little bit more refinement on the architectural, like what the materials are, because that is, I think, something the code will expect you to actually approve. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
On the building, I don't think we have enough here to say, okay, this building's approved.
In your packet, you have the actual elevations.
Yeah, they're not enough printed out.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
some
you have those in your packet.
unfortunately, these didn't actually get into the packet. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, here's an issue though, we have, just explaining to the applicant, is that we want to get to a position when we have anything for us to review that was submitted in the package, right? And what happens is when people come like tonight and they give us these other things, whatever, they're not packet, nobody's seen that, and it's not there for us on this side of the table. And we appreciate this, but like one of the things that is created for me tonight, just to tell you, is that I looked at this elevation versus what was in the packet. This looks all brick. This looks like it's got stucco or something else used in it.
The one in your left hand is all brick. The one on the right hand appears to be has almost. Nope.
I think, but is that a yellow brick then that you're using with the red brick?
The only difference between that rendering and this rendering is the seating area.
Right.
The seating area is
referring to the character walls that may be stucco.
That's different siding.
Right.
Well, there's the fascia boards. I mean, those are the metal fascia.
Yeah, the fascia would either be a precast or be a metal or something like that, like along the brick.
Like this.
This has different siding.
Yeah, that's a,
Yeah.
that was done.
I know you said this.
Right. I don't, that is not for submission. no.
But that's what, yeah.
But you asked, you asked if I could look at it from a restaurant, and we have.
Yeah, oh, we totally get.
Yeah, and again, the only difference is the grass area that you see the outdoor seating.
We have a formal landscape.
But if you like,
But that's,
They are in there.
they are in the packet.
It was in the packet you got. It's,
Okay.
it's in the packet you received prior to
Yeah,
this
the
meeting.
digital packet, they're
Yeah.
not in what's on our.
Okay.
The packet from tonight, the one that was.
I think that was the one that was too big, the file was too big.
Yes.
In the pack. Yes.
Small size?
Yeah.
On the last page of the site plan, but.
last page is the,
No, signage plan is not.
we're not bringing signage in. That'll have to be submitted also. The signage will not be submitted, is not being submitted. We don't know, it's too many variables.
You're not gonna know what's under there.
Correct. Right.
What about signage for the whole site plan, the whole, is there gonna be a sign somewhere saying, welcome to,
Right.
this area have a name?
Right. Yeah, we'll probably have a pylon sign of the directory and built signs on the buildings, but we're not asking for any signage approval tonight at all. Because we don't know who our tenants are, we can't ask for signage. I mean, until we know who the tenants are, we can't ask for.
So you're gonna come back to Jenny and say, here's the building you're gonna do. Here's what we're gonna do.
That's fine. Yeah, for final.
So,
Well, what my point
you don't
is,
approve it, you just provide direction on that.
you're allowed to do this tonight, yeah. But for final, I mean, what I'm trying to say, unless we hear comments from you guys tonight, we're gonna be submitting the same set of drawings, but we recognize the fact that it'll have to be approved for final.
You're not asking for final.
I am not.
No. Okay.
But what I am saying is that if you say you want paisley brick or tie-dye brick, then we're gonna have to come back with paisley or tie-dye brick.
Said red.
He said,
Come back to it, it'll be full. I mean, you know what we're looking for.
I work.
Absolutely.
That's fine. That's fine.
Please, yeah, that's what I was saying, just to me, look different than that.
Which one do,
This one was not.
Yeah, that's correct. That's one in your left hand. I just handed out tonight.
Where did you get that?
In my packet, so I can,
They're in the digital.
It's in the packet.
Yeah, I printed that.
We just pointing out, we do have a little bit of a warrant table, it looks like that in fact, some like a split face block by up the.
Yeah, fine, for
there. And that's not, you don't have to specify in terms of exactly what it is, but yeah.
No.
But that will be notified.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then feel like you find, you'll see all the usual stuff.
Right.
I can just go through a few of my, generic elevation comments. I just noticed, looks like, some of the elevations, some of the storefronts are kind of flat frames and some are maybe not, and really talked about that, was a mistake or not, but it's kind of,
You say black frames?
No, black. Same, some are black, some are, anodized green.
yeah, is that the intent?
At this point in time, until we know more of the tenancy and anything else like that, it's tough to finalize that, but if you have a preference that you want all, black metal frames or, bronze anodized frame, and then you want canopies to match that, we'll put down those notes and we'll make sure that what shows up.
As an example, the one in Houston is all, mill aluminum. But the drawings we're showing are either anodized or black.
I don't
And,
personally have a preference. I'm just looking at the elevations and knowing that they're different. So that's, one thing that, how do we provide direction when it's not identified? Which ones?
Some boards prefer hunter green, and then we'll make sure that, the awnings are hunter green and that the anodized, storefront systems are, hunter green. So we'll work with what, your preference, if you have it.
I'm agreeing better than that.
You do?
Black better.
It'll look just like the medical buildings up the street, and then we have two medical parts. Just to go right. Maybe the awning version, right?
the awnings are, they're green, so you're right.
I mean, black always looks, well, when you're at the elevation, but when it's reflective in the light, it's not as black. But, and I like the anodized as well. Again, I don't have a preference. I'm just pointing out, I noticed the difference. I also noticed the buildings have two different awning styles. And I'm just curious about the rationale for that. One has a sloped awning and one has like a flat awning with a high back.
Well, which the elevations are not in your package.
Right, maybe one up there.
Oh, yeah,
The ones we're looking
Right.
at are.
Right. We'll, when we bring back the final, we'll, again, based on those comments, I don't know that we have a preference.
I mean, I generally like the, the flat awning.
Okay.
Again, I'm just thinking, I mean, my first reaction to this, to the architecture of these buildings is we have these medical facilities up, this medical offices up the street. I mean, not having two big kind of investors so close to each other that are have too much of the same language going on. I think the break is nice to tie them together and tie them back to the town of Berlin, but I don't necessarily want to have all the same detail. So, I mean, again, I like that. I like the flat ones, the tie backs, I think are a nice detail. You know, we have sloped awnings in town, but also with tie backs, these sloped awnings I don't have tie backs. I just like, and you would want it consistent across all three buildings. Not necessarily, I'm just asking, I'm asking for what your rationale and how it difference.
Like the building too.
Yeah.
Sometimes and you have some of the similar components, but you have a little bit of diversity on some minor architectural components that makes it a little bit more interesting. Has been my experience. But I do want to say that the bronze aluminum and black aluminum kind of read from the street the same. They're pretty much, they read from the street the same, but they're dark.
Yeah.
Or versus mill aluminum, which is kind of shiny and white, versus kind of green. We don't have, kind of green is not really in the discussion at this point.
Well, I just,
And then, we got an example because we have one down the street.
Architect prefer non-green.
not a big fan of green, I like aluminum myself. I just live in solar on thoughts.
Okay, so I mean, those are exactly the kind of comments we're looking for, so we can incorporate them into the architectural elements.
It's gonna be real interesting to find the facade, what material, what the back.
We have,
This one just threw me off a little bit because it does look much tan.
Right. That was so old. That was back in December. So they're lighted up and thrown away. It was more specifically to address the concept of outdoor dining. Period.
Well, I like the outdoor dining you can find in restaurant. I like that. I think it brings the streetscape we're trying to do on Alderson City Road. Not dissimilar to whatever it's called, 50. Forgot how they've done that outside area or whatever. Same thing, kind of draws you to it, right? I think I like the idea of agreeing. It makes it a little bit more alive. And I like the idea of you saying that these window sizes are amenable to change to roll up or whatever garage door to bring the inside outside. I think it's a great idea. And I have one question that has nothing to do with this. Are you putting the fence up around the air conditioner there across the street from you? I noticed there's fencing up there now.
Fencing up where?
On the other side of the gym. Somebody built fencing out there, they were open, they're putting fencing around the air conditioning unit.
Oh, Jim.
Across the street. We are?
They
No, you didn't. I didn't know. I didn't build a fence around properties. I didn't know whether you are.
the heat fence is going in.
Okay,
I'm glad.
we didn't do. Landing strip by a Cornell. Every 1,000-foot landing strip. I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
I do have some questions on the site plan.
Sure.
Get back to that. Can
Please,
you
thank you.
explain the traffic pattern of, especially with that drive-through? Is there any lanes that are going to be one way? I'm looking at SP2, one of them, that's the landscaping plan, but
It'll come in off of the town street, pull straight in. That is a retaining wall that splits because that elevation is about 4 feet higher than the grade out top. And then the parking is served by its own two-way traffic as well. So there's a single drive-through lane heading south, and then there's a 2-lane traffic serving the parking on the other side of the retaining wall. Then there will be a stop sign coming off of the drive-through to make that thing.
so there's no one way.
No.
What's one
other than the drive-through.
Well, yeah,
drive-through.
other than the drive-through, of course.
And that's on the left side because of the front.
And then I know the one of the requirements is still fire marshal approval. Do you think we'll have any items with like the circulation in here and the radiuses?
The radiuses we're using are pretty well standard, 20 foot, 15 foot all the way down.
We did run into, you may not know this, but, we did run into a concern on the North Bay of Ocean Pine on going through, where they asked me to put bigger radiuses, and I didn't understand it, but we did it. The farm
More
market.
room for the trucks to turn and.
Yeah, but these, I mean, no other buildings have that, but they asked us to do it on building 3, and we just did it. I wouldn't argue.
They tell me to find that.
Right. Okay. I didn't understand it, but we did it. Because typically, Mike, as an example, Ocean City, you require 2 sides to be full access. This actually is 4 sides to full access, so hopefully they'll be happy.
And then the only kind of the dual part question, so I see the loading zones that are, all towards the one side of the project. Is that with the intent for like a truck to park and then unload with a dolly and walk everything through with the dolly? Or is that gonna be unloading, loading station? Or,
It's definitely not patient.
okay, that's it.
Because the whole reason we have this, we have a, we don't have a patient drop, we do have a patient drop off on, that's the drop off. So on this elevation now, the patient drop off is here.
That's building works, right?
Yes, that's correct. And the drive up window is here.
Okay, I see that. And then my last comment was, I do really like these photos, thank you for bringing those. One of the things that stands out here that's a little different is this is all so many parking spots that are heading, whereas this only has this one strip. The thing that makes this head-in parking look really nice is those landscaping strips in between. So I think it.
No, wait a minute, this is what we gave them.
That's
This one we gave them. Okay, is the way she's looking at the
One of my recommendations to make that area look nicer would be if we can, so I already know we are over our parking, if we could lose those 8 parallel parking spots and widen the gap, the space between those head-in parking spots by 2 feet maybe on each side, provide some sort of landscape plan or island.
I've never built a medical office building that has this. And I say that because we're always 10 to 20% more in the quantity of parking spaces, because there's never enough parking and I always get complaints. So we always try to provide more parking. I agree with what you're saying. We do have a landscaping island. What we did here, Brock, was it actually worked out for storm water as well.
We have a bio area,
Yep.
which looks really nice because you have the filter strip next to it, so it's gonna stop cars.
You're referring to this, I believe, right here?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
I mean, that looks really nice, but obviously they have everything planned out with stormwater probably already that hopefully you're good to go.
This was building from here to here. This represents ripping it out. So that's all new construction. There's a 200,000 square foot building. We took 62,500 square feet out and put that in. So that's all brand new. So it wasn't existing.
But one thing I will look at is if you look at that middle row of parallel parking, it is all set to the north in compared to the 2 rows of parking on either side. If I slide the parallel parking spaces as they are to the same distance as the other 2 parking areas, then I can create that grand spot between the 2 parking.
Even if it's 2 feet in between parking spaces, it adds some dimension.
Yep. I think that's a good idea.
And then in front, I see all like, I have the tiny plan, I think with some red maples, some other trees, if we could add more, also a little bit of understory shrubs in the front, I think that would add some dimension to the plants and really make that front landscaping strip pending, of course, any future changes with patio area. That could be beneficial to the view as well.
Yes. These are the comments we're looking for, so we come back here hopefully whatever date that might be, you can get a final, and then we get to the county soil on the final. And the bank, in the back.
I have a question about that phase construction. So when you have phase one, there's building 1, 2, maybe you have garden stuff, and then phase 2 would be building 3. What construction activities aren't gonna happen that is in the area of phase 2? You have like all the parking in there, the landscaping.
We may not have the parking in there, we may not have the landscaping, but it'll be stabilized because the soil conservation folks can make it stabilized if it's with grass. So they'll, Rocky might have to help me on this one. It would be our intent to take this area right here by itself and stabilize it. But it'll be plus or minus 0.2 of a foot with compacted fill, because we've got to do a fill work and get it up to grade. Did I say that?
Yeah. I think the demolition would occur, all the rubble, all the trash,
junk.
all the pitfalls would be removed. It would then be filled with grade.
Your stormwater calculation will be based on the square footage of that building three?
Yes.
Yes.
It is. Yes, it is. For sure.
Stormwater will be designed and constructed, so the whole process.
And then parking would remove any of
I think that would be the trick with the phase plan and the construction plans, to make sure that those phases included in the parking, when it doesn't apply. Okay.
So could we essentially, okay, we're doing preliminary tonight, with the intention that they're gonna come back for final. Right now, we're looking at everything. If you do solidify down the road the phasing, you say, yes, we're 100% only doing 1 and 2 right now. If we're doing the site in 1 and 2, and then the others are later. Require, and I don't want to make you guys keep coming back to us, but require, if you do change and do phasing, then you have to come back. Or next time when they come back for final, say we just want to see the phasing.
even the phase construction, but just explaining.
Okay.
I think that just so
That would
we're
be
something
very
in writing
helpful.
for you
Yeah,
guys.
it's definitely helpful to keep the record straight about what you're approving and what direction the project is and your expectations.
It's the same thing we did with Wyatt when he was looking at his property, because he was gonna do the front in phase 1, or the back in phase 1 and front in phase 2. It was a little convoluted, so we just asked for him to give us a phase breakdown, so that way we had it on paper. You guys would have it in your records.
Yeah, it would help because also we presented it as a phase project and it wasn't as clear in the agreement that we have right now. So it'd be helpful also just for public information about what the phase is, like what your intentions are.
We know we have to come back to these building factors. Our goal is to get these two buildings way underway as fast as possible. Oh, so everything north of this drive-up window, except for requirements for parking, will be a piece of phase. But we'll clarify that on time.
Yeah, just as long as.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to this, and maybe you did, and maybe you've had discussions with the council, because in reading the mayor's letter again, seems like there's this issue in this easement next to this access where it's 10 feet or whatever that could put any plantings, root plantings, I think they said, or something.
I think there was some confusion on the actual amendment. I think Mark and Emily are communicating on that. There's kind of an implication that if we do, it has to be repaired by us. And that's, you might be able to explain that a little bit.
Well, it's drafted right now as being, and this is something that Palmer's correct, we haven't solidified between the parties specifically, but typically in a utility easement, you don't want anything that has to be dug up if you need to service it. And I think, I actually spoke with Sharon. Sharon actually has thoughts on why trees, like rooted plants, are really that idea if there's utilities underneath them. I think you could speak to, like, from an engineering standpoint. Yeah.
So when you have, utilities like water and sanitary sewer, the typical idea is to maintain at least 10 feet between any deep-rooted plantings and those utilities, because as we all know, where are those roots going to go? They are going to seek the closest source for water and nutrients, and those are utilities, and you want to maintain them away from that. So you don't want those plantings in that utility easement for that reason.
So I just, and Emily, somehow this got missed in all this hoopla from November to April. The utility easement, when we met with DB, when we were able to meet with DEF in November of 2024 and October
Mhm.
of 2024. These are the drawings that DEF created.
Mhm.
In this plan, all the property line adjustments that we now agreed upon were shown,
Yeah.
except for the north property line. But also in this plan, the goal was to keep the west side of the new access road kind of more of a promenade with an 8-foot sidewalk and heavy landscaping at that. And I'm hesitant to even bring this up because I don't want to block the road any, but the easement for the utilities was supposed to be on the west side of the new access road. So somehow between November 2024 and today, that piece has gotten missed. So the utilities, the Sharon's absolutely 100% correct on, were intended to have gone on the west side of the access road.
That's- You mean the east side?
I'm sorry, the
Yeah,
east side of
I was gonna say, you confused
the
me.
east side of the new access road.
West side,
So
I'm like,
the utility easement, because that's where the public works was, blah, 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 to avoid any of the concerns that everybody has, which are 100% correct. With the utility easement, Josh Hastings, I think it was. Yeah, he's now the sanitary director of Somerset County.
Yeah.
When he prepared this, when we met with the town and all the town public works folks, the utility easement was going to go on the east side of the new access road.
Okay, I think maybe we should have a conversation about this.
Well, there's one more thing we need to bring up.
Okay.
And all of our drawings, and this is where, again, communication is important. All of our drawings show a right-hand turnout. That means we're gonna have to give up a little bit more land to the town to create the right-hand turnout. That was not mentioned, and I'm afraid to bring it up because.
We don't understand what you're speaking about, so maybe we can have this conversation outside.
Okay,
Is that possible?
when you're leaving the.
Right? No, I understand what you're saying, right? I'm just saying this is.
No.
I would prefer to have it right now, if it's possible.
Okay,
I'm
can I
afraid.
ask a question? Back to this too, and we have an issue with another parcel we have in Berlin that we agreed to right away that we build and whatever, and it wasn't specific, and the developer then saying that he'll do it when he finishes the entire project, so in other words, it never got built. Or we want to talk about it before that happens, but anyway, you show your sidewalk here, and one of my concerns, Palmer, is that by doing it in phases like you're doing, if you have the sidewalk just where you do the building, and then the town decides to do their skate park, we've got sidewalk getting here and nothing going back to.
Please understand the sidewalk is part of the access road. So that is outside of.
Well, actually, the access road is being built by the town.
So the
The
sidewalk's
access road,
not-
not on 113, not in Overton City Boulevard, but the town is building the sidewalks associated with it.
So
Part of the right of way.
this whole
And we'll bring this back, so we don't have to worry
Yeah,
about
that
this
doesn't.
phase two never happened, this whole no sidewalk.
This whole road right here is part of the town access road.
Well, are you asking for a suggestion that I personally agree with what was done back in November of 2024, that those utilities should be on the other side?
That's what it, yes. Well, unfortunately,
I don't think we've got.
I'm sorry to say this, I'm just gonna be perfectly freaking blunt. We're not allowed to communicate with DBF on the access road. I mean, problem we're having at this point is we are being instructed to go from point A to point B. We know where point A is, but we don't know where point B is. That's a concern, and that your question there as to the access road would be a concern too, because topographically what we've done is we've given DBF it's a one-way communication. We've given DBF the control points along the access road. So when Emily asked me, what do I need specifically? I need the whole drawing. I mean, what we need, Brock and Ron, you can back me up on this if you will. We need the whole drawing of the access road. It's not, I'm not sure where that status is. We don't know. We're kind of unfolding. Well, I don't know the answer to that.
It's for another discussion, but
It's for another
we've
discussion.
engineered, we don't know where to take the word, so from right now, without
Water and sewer
going deeper design of that road.
Elevations, inlet, turbine locations, radiuses, tying points.
Way above what they do.
Of course,
Oh, yeah.
but all of that engineering information.
So, Emily, are you saying that we have no input on that whatsoever, because that's with the town and not with our applicant?
Yeah, that's an issue that I did believe that we should have a dialogue about, so, I haven't been personally part of that process, so I wasn't aware of it.
Just know that the sidewalk is big.
but the sidewalk.
I understand it's not be there, but I could this applicant, I would like them to know that I agree that in my opinion, and this for Emily, whoever is gonna get this back to the council, is it should be on the other side.
There-
Not,
because of-
utilities,
Yes.
utilities
I think
is to
it's
be
not
on
in
the
the
east side of the access road, not the west. Which would allow for more landscaping and I think it would look a lot better for the.
and we can put some trees on
And put some trees and whatever. I just think that it,
I think there may be a reason that it wasn't done that way. I don't know the answer.
I think, I think
If it was on the east side, would it then be under the pavement of the street?
it'd be
Yeah,
under the
so-
utility easement.
So
And then
actually,
the other
this-
would it be under the street, right?
Just to be clear, this utility easement is not for the current, it's not for the DPW facility. It is actually intended to be there for the future development of the rear of Heron Park. It's not, so it's not activated anytime soon.
So
you're gonna leave it in.
I can answer that question. On this drawing in 2024, there is a 5-foot utility easement shown in this section on the east side of the new access road. So keep in mind that the right of way is a 50-foot right of way. A 2-way lane is 24 foot, 12 and 12. Adding the third lane at the entrance is another 12 feet, so that's 36 feet. You still have the room for the 8-foot sidewalk, and you still have room for the utility easement on the east side. This was all worked out back a year and a half ago. Just FYI. What happened, Emily, to your point, Josh Hastings left, and I don't think I could have said all this if we could have talked, but sorry, I mean, that might sound offensive, but if we're going to communicate with DEF, we could walk this up and let them know that they've already designed this, but we weren't allowed to. That way, the city would not have had a bill.
you have my comment, I think it's going to be said. Oh, I've allowed you and your landscape, you come back to us, I'd love to see the trees and.
Yeah, that's what this drawing
plants,
shows.
whatever.
You see the impact the easement has on our landscape.
And they're right.
We inadvertently still show 2 trees in there that they shouldn't be there. But
Oh, you're getting these trees down there.
Yeah.
Either.
No. So you see what we've done. We tried to plant outside the best we could.
Right.
It makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Well, I'm trying to say to you that we agree with 100% with the utilities.
I know, but I'm giving you my comments and I don't know where you can take those comments.
I don't know because like I say, we've been trying to be proactive, so we've probably gone against the directions and communicated one way to DEF to let them know what the control points are on this access road, because we have 3 points of access on this. And if you notice that topographically, it sheet falls from across the Proctor's property towards our property. So there's a need there to understand how all this functions from the stormwater management system. We just don't know. But I can say, to Sharon's point, that we would love to have the utility easement on the east side as was planned in 2020.
Well, I'm the staff.
Communication, somebody bringing the issue up.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to put it on this west side, and I get, look at these beautiful drawings, and they don't even have all, but they showed, trees here, and I think that looks a whole lot better than it just being open and a sidewalk running through it.
Like I said, the irony of this drawing in November 24 was that Scheme 4 contemplated the proper relinquishing of the right of way. We got that signed by Mr. Park and Mr. Proper in October of 25. So that's agreed upon that now. So what that means is when that right of way that the town has across the proper property, he relinquishes that and adjusts the property line of the proper property. What that does is allow for Scheme 4 to work. The Scheme 4, which was developed again back in November 24, works now. Because Mark Proper and myself and Chris Proper and Mr. Park got that agreement signed. So now we have relinquished, we now can implement Scheme 4. That's been on hands out. It would have saved the city some time and money, but again, that's the money part.
For the sake of the preliminary, we have to apply. I understand 10 direction. I understand.
What else would that potentially affect?
What's that?
If the easement was moved to the east side, we would just fill it up with land. We would have a much better street. It would be the only change.
It's designed for that.
My comment to the staff is that whatever needs to make that happen, we should make happen.
It'll be communicated.
And I want to see the final color.
What bricks samples in here? You want paisley or tie dye?
One red.
We
We don't know what red.
There's no shades of red.
Yeah.
Well, we had previously requested that, same thing, probably.
For example?
Yeah.
And we normally do that for final.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Can I ask a question
Okay.
of the applicant's engineer just for clarification? I see the loading space associated with building 2. Can you tell me how someone making a delivery there will easily get whatever they're delivering to the building? Because right now there are two drive aisles and 2 rows of parking where they will literally have to go out into the drive, the main drive aisles and walk around, if that is all full, to walk around to the entrance to the building.
So since I'm changing this whole area in the back anyway.
Okay.
And if you follow me here, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna split the handicap spaces up.
Okay.
So that they are back to back. And then that will allow me to get a striped crosswalk from that loading zone through the 2 handicap spaces and then directly into it.
Okay.
Good.
Or your nurse said you use a bus lane.
I just wanted to make that clarification, just because, otherwise you're going to have your delivery vehicles not use that loading space and park right in front of the building, which defeats the intent of having loading space.
So what that's probably gonna entail, Janelle, is probably an island on both sides of these clustered handicaps. We'll drop that down so it's a flush sidewalk. But the ramps going across. We'll have at least some landscaping on both sides.
That's exactly what we're doing.
I'm sorry to clarify, all the dumpsters are on the right side. Right?
Yeah.
Essentially, the one that's supposed to be on the west corner of the building.
Yeah. And the one by the,
Right. Well, before I call for motion, is there any comments from the public? Does anybody have a motion to make? Can I be clear? One more request. Architecture views from high level on the sidewalk back towards the building, as opposed to aerial. I think they're much more effective and will tell us a better story of what I think is being done very well in terms of breaking down the facades that are, relatively tall. I mean, if you go there, we're not changing the height of the buildings that are existing there all that much. But I think the breakdown of the parapets is nice. It'll tell a better story of having that kind of water table looks from a high level perspective. And I see, like some of the renderings are showing mechanical equipment on the roof. I see more on the roof. The parapets are relatively shallow, so that kind of view from across the street. If there's any way that would get some sense of the size of it, I know all different kind of figure it apart.
Sure. In this scheme right here, they were set back pretty far for exactly that reason. There are some extended height parapets, but we set the mechanical units on this building back into the body of the flat open area. So that from eye level, you can't see it. Unless you get them.
I noticed they were on the renderings, the exact base on the roof plan, but they're right on the one back.
Okay. Good point.
You can add rendering from down parking lot. Do anyone like to make a motion?
I'll try.
Yeah.
Alright, so I'm gonna make a motion to accept this as a preliminary site plan approval with the intent that this project will come back to us for final plan approval. Our recommendations are that the applicant will address utility infrastructure revisions, final stormwater approvals, town of Berlin approvals, including the plat review process, fire marshal approval, SHA approval, forest conservation approval, and soil conservation.
I just need to ask Bob a question if I may. Is that out of sequence that we have to get final together with the kind of soil? Or can I do that? Can you do what kind of soil before we define?
usually we get all of our approvals, or at least get those approvals being imminent, and then come back.
Because you're gonna come to us with preliminary site plan approvals for stormwater. You're not gonna come back to us with like final stormwater approvals when you come to final.
We already
site
have,
plan review.
we already have the preliminary February 9th, that's like, stormwater management.
Conceptual, right?
That was in the.
Yes.
Yes, conceptual. So you have two more steps for that. And usually soil conservation goes towards the end.
My privilege is to have all of the approvals you just mentioned imminent prior to applying for final. Down to the last few comments, the checklist items.
Is it
amended
amended?
file. We'll be there sooner than minute, and I know I put myself in a bind, but
The final approval is gonna be something.
yeah.
Yes.
That way we're coming back with a fully complete, we don't have to go back anymore for which.
Right, and you'll make sure we get the actual motion to us.
She's still, I've still got.
Oh,
I'm trying to be detailed.
There's 12 more pages.
So with the intent that those outstanding agency comments be addressed. And then in addition to that, with the guidance that we provided today, including, the phase construction plan, modified landscaping plan, architectural elevations at the eye level view, and material sample.
Second.
I don't know if you said this or not, but once again, this has to be subject to the mayor and council's approval.
I think
Sure,
that was it, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I mentioned about the plat review process.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there a second? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, and I apologize for coming in rogue a couple of moments.
Is there any comments from the public? Any comments from staff?
I was just thanking Janelle for being very specific on the approval.
You take for
no
official
comments
record,
from me.
you don't have me on.
Anyone
I
from the commission have
can't give
any
you a card for. Thank you.
Like the spirit. I go.
Thank you for asking. I just have another. We've talked about this before.
I love it. Thank you for bringing that. Love it. Who brought this to you, Karen?
Jamie, Jamie.
Some get ready to so that substantial alterations.
Thank you.
So, to Eric's point, I guess what he's trying to talk about is
I couldn't hear.
your.
There was a lot going on.
How do we have talked about this before, I don't know how we make any headway on it, and I don't know if it has to be a point that keeps coming up, but some change in the code so that any substantial alterations.
The code needs to be like revised, if we can
Yeah.
because I think you guys have been doing generally the like this way it was being done. It's just not necessarily codified that way, and the fact that it's not codified is being used by especially the people who are not from here in a really difficult way.
One problem is
Can
Yeah.
you, since you're, you going a lot smarter than we are.
Yeah.
Can you write these code changes down that you think and recommend so that next meeting we can go over those and?
I'm happy to do that. Like, yes, I can work on that. I'm not sure that my budget's going to be reviewed, so I can try to do that before like the end of the fiscal year.
You can convey it to Ms. Hardesty, maybe she can.
We are well aware it needs to be revised.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we need to see that list so that we can say, yes, it makes sense, or no, it doesn't make sense, and so that we can make a recommendation then to the county.
Yes, and that's been something we've been wanting to get to.
Can I add to that real quick? In previous meetings, we've had, I feel like it's Groundhog Day sitting here. You guys have offered recommendations to us on how to approach these meetings. I don't think we've seen, like, here's the PC's overall guidance from the town and how to, it is really unprofessional to sit here, even just as like an alternate, but seeing this back and forth between the town and the planning commission in front of applicants looks really bad. And it's like, well, the town code doesn't allow this, but you guys need to interpret it, and then you're telling us how to approve things or how to make motions. There needs to either be, I understand code change takes a long time, and there's a lot of process in that. But even like, here are the nuances of the code that you guys need to be aware of. And these are the bullet points of how to address these when the applicant comes. So we're not having these conversations on recordings in front of applicants.
I don't
I think it looks really bad.
I don't disagree with you. Like, it's just been difficult to get to that point because we've been dealing with them in a context of very high contentious situations where it's not easy to convey that because we're focusing on political stuff that's going on as well.
Yeah.
So, I was hoping my staff memo, like my memos to you, were helping a little bit. To give you some guidance on that, but,
They
it needs
do.
to be, it needs to be changed. The reality is the code just needs to be clear and like, do you guys go, this is what we're doing these steps and there's been, that checklist is a little bit, it wasn't created by any of us. It was created by someone else. And so it wasn't necessarily lining up with the code. And so that's creating confusion.
I think it was created to help.
The process, but it wasn't necessarily going with the
Give us
code.
a list of what you think should be changed and what you think needs to be changed. If we have a discussion on it at the next meeting, after we get take our any out and whatever, and then we can make recommendations. We always make recommendations to council what needs to be changed or what can be done. We've done that for years. And, so we make the list and it makes sense. Get it to them. It's not shouldn't be a complicated thing for them.
Well, I had started this looking at it, and I think that almost like it'd be best to just kind of take the code from Salisbury has really good code, and just take their code.
You don't want to be like Goldman.
Oh no, actually, no, it's the county. Actually, I'm sorry, it was the county. The county code has a very clear process that I think is what we really want to get to. It's the county code. I'm sorry, I looked at Salisbury.
We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to tweak the code we have or something. Just write it down with you, like you said, where it's, I think we should have in the code that they're required, any applicant can have a preliminary hearing before we do.
Yes.
At least for commercial, I don't necessarily think that you need for residential, like a single family residential.
Do it for everybody. And then that way we have more control over what goes on, and we have more, give us more time and staff more time to take care of things they need to take care of. But we should look at things preliminarily so that we can then speed it up and then they can tweak it, go to our specifications and then go to final. Well, that's, really, we've always run the big bluff, I guess, because we never knew for all the time I've been on here that we've always required preliminary here. I mean, remember Pete, we had them all the time, everything had preliminary.
Right. And unfortunately, what we have found recently is that there are, savvy, land use attorneys who are, using the, letter of the code against them. And
you got two of them sitting right here.
absolutely. And, I can't say that necessarily they're wrong because they are adhering to the letter of the code. But the intent of the code is different. And to clarify that.
About that each state that the road to hell was paved with good intent.
Absolutely.
Change it, but notify.
Right. So I agree. I think it will make the process easier, clearer for staff, for the commission, for applicants moving forward. And you're right that your process that you have been adhering to with a preliminary and a final step is a typical process everywhere else that, I work for.
Well, the reason we've always, most applicants wanted eases. So they've not wanted to raise any kind of hackles of planning commission. They wanted to cooperate with what we're saying. So they've always been cooperative. Maybe that's why the preliminary thing has never really come up. Nobody's ever questioned, but we need it in writing so that we have the right to demand a preliminary hearing and then upon it.
Yeah.
So for next month on the agenda, can we, I know we talked about this, everybody knows, we're gonna have the election of the vice chairman. And then can we have like a work session on coming up with verbiage between all of us on substantial changes to existing plans that were approved? That's what Eric's getting at, is we'd like to really talk about that. Let's put it on the agenda, we'll all shoot it
Or
around.
like just the code generally. That's just one issue that we could, I think
It's a big one that I really want to tackle because I think it's gonna keep happening, especially with out of town people coming.
Yeah,
And if I'm an out of town investor and I'm smart, I'm coming here, I'm getting approval, and let it sit for 2 years and I'm changing it and going.
And what constitutes a substantial change that requires it to come back.
That's it. I just want to shoot her, I just want to talk for 20 minutes and really hash that out. I mean, you guys have direct, or you, Emily, or whoever, has direction on what we're saying. It's
It
easier.
completely makes sense, like that, it's substantial change, but I think if we're gonna go with that, even just touching on some of the other big issues like final, preliminary, that kind of concept, what you expect the plan to be level, because that has been a struggle for, as you know, like, what is the plan you wanna see? Is it, further along?
That's why I think you also have to have these architectural review, whatever you want in there, they should be as a condition, because I know from being on the other side of the table, you don't have that in the code. What are you guys doing? I've got everything in your code. This drawing means everything in your code. I'm glad to hear what your opinion is, but it means absolutely nothing when you go to a court. And you've got to have it. If we want to have that, it's got to be brick, it's got to be this, it's got to be whatever. Have it. So when they apply and they give it to us, they already know. We're not sitting here going, what color brick is that? Or what, or is that all brick? Or, you know what I mean?
It's red, it is a brick.
Those
That means like the way
architectural
you presented was red. It didn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't clearly brick.
Yeah, and so I think we really need that. I know that was the problem that I had representing Wawa.
That's been a 20-year conversation.
Yeah.
And you are-
Yeah, we need those standards.
We adopted Worcester County.
We've got people on
Yes.
this commission before that on the architectural standards front. They want to be, they want to be covers and they want to dictate every nail they bang and every color of everything, and they want to be Nazis about it. Now, you can't do it because you can drive somebody economically right out of a project by demanding certain things. So we have to be real careful. But
I just think we should have to say
Well,
whatever they may do.
the vague goals that you highlighted in your memo covers, that covers a lot of things where you can be pretty vague and say we can demand neighborhood conformity, which is
Yes, you can.
so the neighborhood could be, the neighborhood is the whole shine, really. I mean, so if you want to look like downtown Berlin or you make it look like downtown Berlin, most applicants over the years have always conformed to architectural changes unless they were really stark and cumbersome, that we suggested without argument. But I know the day will come when somebody will, the no-tell motel with you. They haven't changed anything, have they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did.
It took a few attempts, but they got it.
What is our position, or how much power do we have to overrule the town code?
Who's
Planning commission.
not good? You can't. You have to work within the code.
I know, but when just to play devil's advocate,
Yeah.
what we just did tonight overruled the town code by saying we're approving your
Oh, that's
preliminary,
a little
but
bit different. You're saying we're okay with what you presented, but this is not a final approval, which is not overriding the code. It's just saying we're not giving you the green light to go forward with your project right now.
are there other situations like I forget what the terminology, the Purnell property master development,
VRPC.
Yeah, the
And the
PUD.
PUD.
Yeah.
where that overrules our approval of that?
That's a little bit different. So that is the only thing that you all have power to basically change code, which is the zoning code for the PUD. It's it's the most powerful thing you all do, which is why it was, yes, it's in the code. And that's why I was being so this is a big decision for you because you are basically changing the town code by doing this for this project only.
Would you recommend moving forward as we make changes to the code to give the planning commission as a voting body more power to make decisions that maybe the code is vague and we're sitting here trying to make interpretations where we just say, we're making an approval tonight that is stated above and beyond what the code states because this site plan requires our approval to some.
You can so with site plan approval, you have recommendations on certain elements, except for architectural or commercial projects that you have approval over. So you can make whatever recommendations you want to the planning director to implement. Whether or not they have to be implemented is a separate issue, but you can make those recommendations. And to the extent that we can legally defend it, the planning department probably could go forward with that, with your recommendations. But we should be changing the verbiage because the verbiage is very confusing when you're talking about a zoning certificate. This really has nothing to do with zoning.
Right.
Site plan does not have anything to do with zoning. It's site plan approval.
So even our recommendations, the planning office could overrule what we say anyways, based on.
Theoretically, yeah. With the recommendation. Only with, but not with architectural. Like the architectural, you have approval of the commercial project.
Right.
But the planning department, would need to have a defensible reason as to why they overruled your decision. You know, if it's a health and safety situation, you know, as long as it's a legally defensible position.
Like you recommend like a narrow street and the fire department says no.
Sure.
Can I get a motion to adjourn? All there?
I,
No, it's good.